Thank you, Zsigmonte. Well, I was wondering, sitting here, that perhaps in a few years this day will be remembered, well, not only as an anniversary of Kalinowski Forum, but also as the day when a new Cold War between China and the EU started. As you know, within the last 2 hours, return sanctions have been announced by China on a number of European politicians and a number of European institutions, and that's something quite unprecedented. But perhaps Cold War is not a very good metaphor. Perhaps Cold War is misleading because we have had many new Cold Wars. What it reminds me of is, in fact, more like sort of early months of 1939 in many ways. And it would be fair to say, perhaps, that free world hasn't been in a similarly bad shape since the end of World War II. And I would like not to talk about technicalities of democracy promotion and what is happening and foreign affairs, but address a few sort of fundamental things, fundamental issues. If we look at the comparative weight between the free world and its competitors who have today declared their intent to retaliate with sanctions, with brute use of force against attempts to strengthen sovereignty and democracy of such places as Hong Kong and Taiwan, with aggressive industrial and intelligence activities versus advances of the West. When we look at this, and between the balance between the free world and its main competitors, the balance has never been so bad in military terms, in economic terms, as well as in political terms. If we look at the network of alliances that authoritarian states have created in the international institutions, in the very institutions which were created to promote freedom and democracy and human rights. So when we look at this, we really should sort of, also look at the mirror. I mean, sort of, we are talking now about summit of democracies, and summit of democracies is a sort of is a lovely phrase, but the members of the summit should sometimes look at the mirror and answer themselves that is there sort of, are they ready to continue in this fight? Because it is a very ruthless period we have ahead of us. And then the sort of the challenge extends way beyond the borders of Belarus, which gathered us here. But if we want to be earnest about it, we should sort of say to ourselves that there should be no place in the summit of democracies to hypocrisy. When on the one hand we declare sort of our allegiance to democratic values and human rights, on the other we sort of forward so-called economic projects and say that no, it has no connection, that sort of gas links or sort of extending export markets or signing trade agreements has no links whatsoever with the political values we espouse. If it's not a hypocrisy, then sort of what is it? There should be no place for complacency and false security, thinking that what happens in Xinjiang and Hong Kong will not, or in Belarus for that matter, will not come to haunt us. That because a loss of every single sort of human being's freedom, of every single sort of dissident crushed and in the prisons and concentration camps is a threat to liberty in the world. And I mean it very literally. It's not a metaphor. It's the contraction of the area of freedom where we are sort of now being persecuted judicially, sort of in the heart of freedom in Europe. And this is what the impact and the import of the newly announced Chinese sanctions is. There should be no place for tiredness when we sort of, after a few months, accept status quo in Belarus and say, okay, well, that's it, sort of Lukashenko won. No, I mean, sort of, he's only won if we say that he's won. Putin has only won if we can see that he has won, and if we say, oh, let's go back to dialogue. So it's already been 2 months since Navalny imprisonment, so nothing can be done. oh, it's already been sort of 7 years since war in Ukraine, nothing can be done. Everything can be done. I mean, sort of nothing can be done only insofar as we say that nothing can be done. I mean, if we succumb to this tiredness, then yes, then nothing is to be done, and we yield the victory to the sworn adversaries of freedom and liberty in the whole world. There should be no place for myopia and short-sightedness when we sacrifice unity between democratic powers and between freedom-loving nations to our inner political squabbles and concerns. When we sort of, when transatlantic alliance is questioned because we think that sort of it will sound good in our internal sort of next regional election or something like that. Sort of this is terrifying. This is really terrifying, and there should be no place for crisis of faith in democracy. Because what we face now is not just an alternative narrative whereby China and other authoritarian states oppose sort of narrative of development in which there is no place for human rights and democracy to the fundamental narrative which has led us until now. What we face is actually sort of a total experiment in creating a whole new alternative system of authoritarian governance coupled with very sort of voracious, very sort of predatory economics, technological advances, as well as mass indoctrination, and attempt to create sort of an alternative system which would be more agile, more aggressive, and its creators believe ultimately more victorious than the Western democracy. This is what we're facing. We are in 1939. This is the hour. And so this is an existential challenge, and I would like that we see the problems with authoritarian regimes and what is happening in Belarus and what is happening in Russia in this light. Thank you.